Hey guys, Dave the MMP back on YOLO for a little sailboat DIY fun. I'm still working on Venus OS. I'm actually creating a course for it on a website called Udemy. It's kind of like an online university for all sorts of computer related things. Um, so I'm going to create the course. There'll be a charge for the course. I think it'll be like $9.99 or something like that, but you'll own it for life. There's a lot of other good things on there about Raspberry Pi and about ESP32s, computer software, all kinds of stuff. So when I do make the video, I'll put a link to in the description. I'll probably just do a little introductory video as to what it is and where to find it and all that kind of things, and just some basic stuff on what you can learn in this course. And it'll be right from Raspberry Pi coming out of the box to Venus OS in your vehicle. You could also use it land-based. Some people are using the Servo GX on land. Mine is a little more geared towards off-grid, which you could do in a cabin or something like that if you really wanted to keep track of your batteries. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now, and that's why I haven't released a video on Venus OS complete series. Right now I'm working on solar panels, and I'm having a little problem with one of my panels, and I'm having a problem with my DC shunt. So let's take a look. Okay, so here's my screen in the boat, and my AC inverter's on at the top right. It's not doing anything, nothing's plugged into it, it's just idling. My solar charge control at the bottom right is working. I've got a panel producing 12 watts. It shows me the watts and the volts. My DC system's not showing anything. It's showing 0 watts and 0 amp draw, but I've got the lights on in the boat, so I know it's pulling about 25 watts. I've got battery voltage at the bottom left there, 13.27 volts, but it doesn't show me the state of charge. It should say like 90% or 100% there. I've got CPU voltage or CPU temperature down at the bottom left. That comes from the Raspberry Pi. You just enable that on the CLM. Cabin temp, I've got a Ruby tag plugged in. It's Bluetooth, so it's got its own battery. It's just hanging in the cabin, and that's how I got cabin temperature at the bottom left. And I like to know that when I'm not at the boat. I'd like to know, is the boat getting close to freezing? Is it smoking hot? What's happening in the boat? So the Ruby tag gives you temperature, humidity. It also gives you atmospheric pressure, so a barometer. So what I can tell from that is the weather getting better, or is the pressure dropping off and there's a cold front coming in? So that kind of tells me what's happening with the weather historically. I live in a different city than where my boat is, so this is interesting to me, because even if I pull my cell phone and look at my local weather, I get local weather where I'm at, not necessarily where the boat is. You can also see that my solar charge controller is charging. So this little dotted line that's running towards the battery, that tells you that power is going from the solar charge controller. That kicks in at about 15 or 20 watts. You can see my panel now has full sun, and I'm getting 60 watts on the solar panel. And that shows you a little graphical interface of where the power is going. So I've got no state of charge on my battery. I unplugged the VE Direct that goes to the USB hub and plugged it back in. It did nothing. I noticed this when I was looking on the VRM remotely from home from my phone, and I've seen this periodically. So what I did was I went to the remote console and I rebooted the Pi. Whenever I reboot the Pi, that comes back, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. It's odd to me that, well, I have voltage, and where the voltage is coming from, it's reading it off the PV charger. So the solar charge controller is reading the battery voltage, and that's how it's displaying the battery voltage, but nothing about current. The Pi takes about 8 watts. I also have the lights on in the boat. That's another 25 watts. So something's happening with the DC shunt. Now, I can look at it on the Venus app on my phone, and it shows it to me properly, but that's coming in via Bluetooth. That's not coming in via VE Direct. So I'm going to unplug the VE Direct cable at the other end at the shunt, And maybe there's an issue with the plug. Maybe the plug is just kind of hanging out of the shunt. I don't know. I did disconnect it by accident one time when I was pulling cables down there, but I plugged it back in. Maybe it needs a little bit of contact cleaner to keep it connecting properly. It is very low voltage, but I don't know what's going on, so I'll have to take a look. Okay, so here's my power section of the boat. I've got my start battery here, and this is where my DC shunt lives, right there. You can see smart shunt, and it's got a wire in it, and that goes to my start battery because I'm monitoring the voltage on my start battery. And the DC, the Victron direct plug is right here, and it looks like it's plugged in okay. I'm just going to see if I can unplug it and plug it back in. Okay, so it's plugged in, it's properly seated, and it's working. Let's go look at Venus OS. So that didn't make a difference. I still don't have any state of charge on my battery, and I still have no power moving from my battery to my DC system. It's not showing me DC current from my batteries supplying power to the rest of the boat, which is kind of odd. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reboot the Pi and see what happens if it comes back. So I'm going to go into the menu here, look at the settings, look at general. Right here it says reboot. So let's reboot the Pi. Rebooting. See how long it takes for the Raspberry Pi to reboot on Venus OS. You get the splash screen first. That's very normal. You see that when you first load Venus OS. You should get a Victron Energy screen, which we do. Come on, Raspberry Pi 4. You can do it. Starting Venus OS. Okay, so looks like we're back. Let's see what we get for a home page. And now we got the full system back again. State of charge 100% on my batteries. I'm showing my power moving, and I knew that there was power moving because I have the main cabin lights on. I'm getting a really good amount of charge, but I could see that before. So this was missing, which is the DC shunt. The state of charge was missing because it needs to have current and voltage to understand state of charge. So rebooting the Pi, I was doing that remotely from home, and that was working, and it works here, obviously, because from home I'm just using the Venus Direct app and the remote console. So it's funny that disconnecting VE Direct and also disconnecting the USB from the mini hub on the Pi didn't do anything. So basically it looks like my DC shunt is going to sleep on the direct connect socket. I don't know what to do about that. I could try a different, maybe it's not the direct connect, maybe it's not the shunt at all. Maybe it's the cable that's connected to it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm not using my inverter all the time. I'm going to swap the cable, the VE direct to USB cable from the inverter and reuse that cable, switch those two cables because I don't have another one, and see what happens. The other thing that I could do is I do have a USB connector to VE Direct, which is this guy. So that's a Bluetooth dongle, and it has a VE Direct plug on it. I'd have to run the Bluetooth to the Raspberry Pi, which I don't know if that works. It works for the Ruby tag that I have here, but I don't think that it will do Venus Direct over Bluetooth to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is capable, but I don't think the software is capable. Let me take a look. So I was able to plug in the Bluetooth dongle into the Smart Shunt, but I didn't find a way on the software, on the Venus OS software on the Raspberry Pi, to connect it in any way. The VE Direct items, they're meant to be connected with this VE Direct plug, either to USB or directly into the Servo GX. I don't see anything in the software. I could see it on my app. So when I connected the Bluetooth dongle to the shunt, it showed up on the Venus OS app as another shunt, which is fine. It's communicating with my phone via Bluetooth, and that's exactly what it should do, but can't make it work with the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to have to switch the cable with my inverter and just monitor over maybe the next week and see if it ever goes to sleep with the new cable. If it does, I got a feeling it's something to do with the shunt. Or the Raspberry Pi connection, but all the other things are showing up connected to the hub. So obviously I've got direct connect to 4G. That's working because I can see it on the VRM remotely. I can always see the charge controller, and I can always see the battery voltage, which comes from the charge controller. I can see the Ruby tag. So I know the Bluetooth is working. Why does the Smart Shunt go to sleep? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to change the Smart Shunt. Well, we'll do the cable first. I'm going to be going offshore with this boat, Caribbean or Australia, Pacific, South Pacific. So I'll probably pick up a spare Smart Shunt. Just if the cable doesn't work, I'll probably end up changing it out, and I'll end up keeping the old one just as a spare. I do have another one that's connected to my BVM, the little voltage indicator in the boat, and that's what was in the boat originally. So when I built the new power system, I put both shunts in series so that they would both see what power is being consumed by the boat. So one's for the Venus OS and one's for the little BVM, the little voltage indicator that is a manual indicator. It's not computerized. It's hooked directly up to the old shunt. Before they came out with, well, they had the color control GX, but they didn't have the Venus OS running on the new versions. Like this is predecessor to the Servo GX. All right, that's it for me. I will see you guys next week.